Good day, Zion. Off the bat, I already know all the Hebrew Christians, and white slash beige Northern Kingdom Israelites who I am now hearing of and refuting their ideological logic, who came from the Caucasus Mountains of the country of Jordan, straight up Gentile territory, will not accept this message. All these and more have never heard the correct breakdown of this prophecy. Isaiah chapter 7 is not a dual prophecy. It is tied solely to the time of Ahaz. So today, we all will hear and hopefully understand that Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14 is not about your sweet Lord Jesus or his black counterpart Yahushua, in the speak of the devil, but rather it is about Isaiah's son. I already know you think that I'm wrong, but just keep this in mind that the followers of the cult of Semiramis Christus were the first people called Christians, and this predates what everybody calls the religion of Christianity now. Let's start so I can show myself approved. Isaiah chapter 7, verses 1 through 7 in the Septuagint. Quote, "And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of son of Jothanel." And you try to remember that this came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jothanel, the son of Zarias, king of Judah. There came up Rasim, king of Aram, and Phaki, king of Ramelius, son of Ramelius, king of Israel, against Jerusalem to war against it, but they could not take it. And a message was brought to the house of David, saying, Aram has conspired with Ephraim, and his soul was amazed, and the soul of his people. As in a wood, a tree is removed by the wind. And the Lord said to Isaiah, Go forth and meet Ahaz, thou and thy son Jezebel, who is left, to the pool of the upper way of the fuller's field. And thou shalt say to him, Take care to be quiet, and fear not, neither let thy soul be disheartened because of these two smoking firebrands. For when my wrath, for when my fierce anger is over, I will heal again. And as for the son of Aram and the son of Ramillis, for as much as they have devised an evil counsel, saying, We will go up against Judea, and having conferred with them, we will turn them away to our side, and we will make the son of Tebiel king of it. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, this counsel shall not abide, nor come to pass. Stop. As we just read in context, this prophecy was during the time of Ahaz, king of Judah, the son of Jothanel. During the time that the two wicked kings, one of Syria slash Aram, and the other of our own stock of Israel, and they formed a conspiracy against all of Judah to replace the sitting king with someone named Tabiel. But per usual, the Most High had our back and told Ahaz that this counsel wouldn't stand nor come to pass, meaning this would never happen against King Ahaz and his people at that time if they followed Yah. Now, let's get some history within the scriptures to prove this happened in the past and not something that's going to happen again in the future. Turn to 2 Kings, chapter 15. We're going to read verses 37 and 38. In the KJV, I believe this may be 2 Samuel. Yeah, this is 2 Samuel in the KJV. Quote, In those days the Lord began to send forth against Judah Rasim, king of Syria, and Phaki, son of Ramelius. And Jothanam slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, his father. And Ahaz, his son, reigned in his stead. Stop. The same thing is said in Isaiah. So we can clearly see and read that 2 Kings and Isaiah chapter 7 are parallel, meaning describing the same event, the conspiracy of the two kings. Okay? We're going to stay in 2 Kings and we're going to go over to chapter 16 and we're going to read the first two verses. Quote, In the 17th year of Phares, the son of Ramilius, began Ahaz, the son of Jotham, king of Judah, to reign. 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did not that which was right in the eyes of the Lord his God faithfully, as David his father had done. Stop. This is my second witness showing that Ahaz and Phares were kings at the same time, showing this is the only time in all of our history of being the nation of Israel that this could have happened. It said not 700 to 733 years in the future when Jesus / Ahaz was supposedly born. The book of Isaiah is accredited to being written during the 700s BC. So from the time that the book of Isaiah was completed, let alone chapter 7, to the time of Idolshai is a minimum of 700 years to a bare maximum of 740 years. All right, so we're going to stay in chapter 16. We're going to go down to verse 6 and 7. This is 2 Kings chapter 16, verses 6 and 7. At that time, Rasim, king of Syria, recovered Aloth to Syria, and drove out the Jews from Aloth. And the Idumeans came to Aloth and dwelt there until this day. And Ahaz sent Tiglath-Pileser, king of the Assyrians, saying, I am thy servant and thy son. Come up, deliver me out of the hand of the king of Syria, and out of the hand of the king of Israel, who are rising up against me. Stop. Again, we just read about these two kings coming against Ahaz to take Jerusalem. But notice, Israel, that Ahaz went to the king of the Assyrians instead of trusting and believing in the Most High. Remember this fact. It will be very important a little bit later on in chapter 7 of Isaiah. This is why it said that he did that which was not right in the eyes of Yah. He didn't completely trust the Most High. Instead, he trusted in men. Hey, kind of like Jesus / Ahaz followers today. Now we're going to go back to Isaiah chapter 7 and we're going to read verses 8 through 10. Verses 8 through 10 in Isaiah chapter 7. Quote, but the head of Aram is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rasim. And yet within 60 and 5 years the kingdom of Ephraim shall cease from being a people. And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria the son of Ramilius. But if ye believe not, neither will ye at all understand. Stop. There go those two kings again. The Most High told him if he didn't believe, he wouldn't understand. Said he didn't believe the Most High would handle the two kings before the conspiracy came to pass. Remember in Kings it said that he did that was not right in the sight of the Most High? King Ahaz didn't put all of his trust in Yah like King David did when Absalom was after him. Also in Kings, he went to the king of the Assyrians to help him against the conspiracy. Unlike other kings who did evil, mainly of the kingdom of Israel, after the kingdom split. But Zion, pay close attention to verse 8 where it states, quote, within 60 and 5 years, the kingdom of Ephraim shall cease from being a people. End quote. Remember the dates I gave earlier for this chapter? How can this prophecy be about baby Idolshai / Jesus Christ 700 to 740 years later in the future? Now let's check out Kings again to see if we can find the kingdom of Ephraim being broken. We're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 17. We're going to read verses 6 through 24. Verses 6, which is the very first verse I'm going to read, verse 18 and 24 are of extreme importance for understanding what happened to Ephraim and understanding this prophecy. Let's read about our history. 2 Kings 17, 6 through 24 in the Septuagint. We're going to highlight verses 6, 18, and 23. Quote, in the ninth year of OC, the king of the Assyrians took Samaria and carried away and carried Israel away to the Assyrians. Let me start over again. 2 Kings 17, 6 through 24 in the Septuagint. Quote, in the ninth year of OC, the king of the Assyrians took Samaria and carried Israel away to the Assyrians and settled them in Ali and in Abor, near the river of Gozan, and in the mountain of the Medes. For it came to pass that the children of Israel had transgressed against the Lord their God, and who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt. And they feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the nations which the Lord cast out before the face of the children of Israel. And the kings of Israel, as many as did such things, and in those of the children of Israel, as many as secretly practiced customs, not as they should have done against the Lord their God. And they built for themselves high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fortified cities. And they made for themselves pillars and groves on every high hill and under every shady tree, and burned incense there on all high places, as the nations did whom the Lord removed from before them. And they dealt with familiar spirits, and they carved images to provoke the Lord to anger. And they served the idols, of which the Lord said to them, ye shall not do this thing against the Lord. And the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah, even by the hand of all his prophets and of every seer, saying, turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my ordinances, and all the law which I commanded your fathers, and all that I sent to them by the hand of my servants the prophets. But they hearkened not, and made their necks harder than the necks of their fathers. And they kept not any of his testimonies which he charged them. And they walked after vanities and became vain, and after the nations round about them, concerning which the Lord had charged him not to do accordingly. They forsook the commandments of the Lord their God, and made graven images, and made themselves graven images, even two heifers, and they made groves and worshiped all the hosts of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fires, and used divinations and auspices, and sold themselves to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. Verse 18. And the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. And there was left, and there was only left the tribe of Judah, quite alone. Nay, even Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God, but they walked according to the customs of Israel, which they practiced, and rejected the Lord. And the Lord was angry with the whole seed of Israel, and troubled them, and gave them into the hands of them that spoiled them, until he cast them out of his presence. For as much as Israel revolted from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king, and Jeroboam drew off Israel from following the Lord, and led them to sin, a great sin. And the children of Israel walked in all the sin. They walked in all the sin of Jeroboam which he committed, and they departed not from it, until the Lord removed Israel from his presence. And the Lord spoke by all his servants the prophets, and Israel was removed from off their land to the Assyrians until this day. And the king of Assyria bought from Babylon the man of Chartheth, and the men of Ai, and from Emath, and from Sepharvaim, and they were settled in the cities of Samaria, in the place of the children of Israel. And they inherited Samaria, and were settled in its cities. Stop. Checkmate. This is only referring to the time of Ahaz. You even have the mention of a king of Israel that predates Ahaz's time on earth, King Jeroboam, who led Israel astray, just like these camps today. Does not this passage parallel what was said in Isaiah chapter 7, especially verses 6, 18, and 23 of Kings? Israel, the kingdom of Israel, Ephraim to be exact, was Israel being removed from the presence of Yah, and only Judah was left. But Judah was close behind and were also removed from the presence of Yah. And for proof of that, just look at your life today. Yah turned his face away from us and is waiting on his remnant to cry out to him, because they know without him they are utterly doomed. Look at that idolatry right there. Ain't nothing but an idol. See, when it says sold themselves to do wickedness, look at that. That's a stone dildo. That's all that is. But back to the subject at hand. Israel. All Israel should know who took the tribes of Ephraim and settled them in another part of his land, and settled them over and settled others in Yah's land. Question all the beige Israelites. Was Tiglath-Pileser's other land in Georgia part of the Caucasus Mountains? And so I really need to know, because this is the linchpin of your association with my book, with my history book. If you cannot show me anywhere within Scripture where actually white people went to the Caucasus, black Israelites went to the Caucasus Mountains and came back white, you have no foot to stand on, and you just need to shut the hell up. Paul is a liar, and the Most High is not a liar. Plain and simple. Now let's get some history. We're going to go back to Kings, 2 Kings, chapter 18. We're going to read verses 9 through 12 in the Septuagint. Quote, and it came to pass in the 4th year of King Zedekiah, this is the 7th year of Osei king, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm messing up. 2 Kings 18, 9 through 12 in the Septuagint. Quote, and it came to pass in the 4th year of King Zedekiah, this is the 7th year of Osei king of Elam, king of Israel, that Shalmaneser, king of the Assyrians, came up against Samaria and besieged it. And he took it at the end of 3 years, in the 6th year of Zedekiah. This is the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Israel, when Samaria was taken. And the king of the Assyrians carried away the Samaritans to Assyria, and put them in Elah, in Abor, by the river Gozan, and in the mountain of the Medes, because they hearkened not to the voice of the Lord their God, and transgressed his covenant, even in all things that Moses the servant of the Lord commanded, and hearkened not to them, nor did them. Stop. Again, another witness of Israel or Samaria being taken by the Assyrians, the nation of Tiglath-Pileser, but in this case, this was his successor. This is Shalmaneser. This was not Tiglath-Pileser. This is after Tiglath-Pileser. So we're going to go back to Isaiah chapter 7, and we're going to read verses 10 through 16, just so we can see who the child was and who this prophecy was exactly spoken to and for. Isaiah chapter 7, 10 through 16 in the Septuagint. And the Lord again spoke to Ahaz, saying, who? He spoke to Ahaz, saying, ask for thyself a sign of the Lord thy God in the depth or in the height. And Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. And he said, hear ye now, O house of David, is it a little thing for you to contend with men? And how do you contend against the Lord? Therefore, he's talking to Ahaz. Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you, Ahaz, a sign. Behold, Ahaz, a virgin shall conceive in the womb, and shall bring forth a son. And thou, who is thou? Is the thou Ahaz? Thou shalt call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, before he knows rather to prefer evil or choose good. Before the child shall know evil or good, He refuses evil to choose the good. And the land shall be forsaken, which thou art afraid of because of the two kings. Stop. Don't get happy. This is not talking about little Jesus or the only begotten idol, Yahushua. This is a sign to King Ahaz that the two smoking firebrand conspiracy would not come to pass, and not a prophecy to be fulfilled after the life of King Ahaz, of whom it was told to. That's an idol. Those are the same idols, just different names. Can anyone show me where Jesus / Yahushua ate butter and honey in their infancy? No, it's not in the New Testament. You're going to have to get creative to show me where he ate butter and honey as an infant or a small child. But notice, even after the supposed prophecy of your idol, the Most High mentioned the land of Judah and the two kings of whom King Ahaz was afraid of. Was Ahaz alive when idol shot or Jesus was born? No. Ahaz's time was 700 to 740 years before the idol was even supposedly born. The virgin birth and the child eating butter and honey were signs that Ephraim within 65 years would not be a kingdom and that the conspiracy would not come to pass, which this decree was given directly to King Ahaz by the mouth of Isaiah, who was a prophet of the Most High, backing up what it was said exactly in Kings, and not told to Israel as a whole. Oh yeah, y'all do remember that Emmanuel means God with us, which is opposite of Jesus / Joshua, which means God is salvation. Remember this. We will see it again in the very next chapter, meaning Isaiah chapter 8. But back to the history to see the conclusion, the deaths of these two kings. We're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 15, and we're going to read verses 27 through 30 in the Septuagint. Quote, in the 50th year of Zariah, king of Judah, began Phakiah, son of Remilias, to reign over Israel in Samaria 20 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from all the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who led Israel to sin. In the days of Phakiah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of the Assyrians, and took Ain and Abel, and a name that I can't pronounce, and Antioch and Kenaz, and Ashur and Gala and Galilee, even all the land of Naphtali, and carried them away to the Assyrians. And Osez, son of Elam, formed a conspiracy against Phakiah, the son of Remilias, and smote him, and slew him, and reigned in his stead, in the 20th year of Jothanam, the son of Zariah. Stop. This is why that conspiracy wouldn't come to pass, because those kings got killed before they can even do it. The death of Phakiah, king of Israel, one of the two kings mentioned in verse 16, along with the child who ate butter and honey as an infant or a small child. This shows Isaiah 7 was not ever meant to be for your so-called Christ, the black one, nor the white/beige one, or even the colorless one. Let's see the fate of the other king. Let's go to the next chapter, chapter 16 of Kings, 2 Kings, and we're going to read verses 7 through 9. Quote, and Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, king of the Assyrians, saying, I am thy servant and thy son. Come up and deliver me out of the hand of the king of Syria, and out of the hand of the king of Israel, who are rising up against me. And Ahaz took the silver and the gold that was found in the treasures of the house of the Lord and of the king's house, and sent gifts to the king. And the king of the Assyrians hearkened to him. And the king of the Assyrians went up to Damascus and took it, and removed the inhabitants, and slew Rasim. Stop. The same Tiglath-Pileser who took away the 10 tribes of Israel, only this time he slew Rasim of Syria, which is also Aram. I told you Ahaz didn't trust Yah. He went to Tiglath-Pileser for anything that troubled him. But I got a question. Was Tiglath-Pileser alive during the time of the idols? No, he wasn't. Meaning, this being linked to Yahushua or Jesus is a false interpretation of Scripture, trying to mingle the profane with the Holy Scriptures. Now, let's see Isaiah's son, whose name is Emmanuel. Isaiah chapter 8, verses 1 through 8 in the Septuagint. And the Lord said to me, quote, and the Lord said to me, take to thyself a volume of a great new book and write in it with a man's pen concerning the making a rapid plunder of spoils, for it is near at hand, and make me witness of faithful man Urias and Zacharias the son of Bacharias. And I went in to the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. And the Lord said to me, call his name Spoil quickly and plunder speedily, for before the child shall know how to call his father or his mother, one shall take the power of Damascus and the spoils of Samaria to the king of the Assyrians. And the Lord spake to me yet again, saying, because this people choose not the water of Shiloh that goes softly, but the wells of Rasim, and the son of Ramilius to be king over you, therefore, behold, the Lord brings up upon you the water of the river strong and abundant, even the king of the Assyrians and his glory. And he shall come over every valley of yours and walk over every wall of yours. And he shall take away from Judah every man who shall be able to lift up his head, and anyone able to accomplish anything. And his camp shall be filled with the breadth of thy land. O God with us. What? O God with us. The KJV literally translates this to Emmanuel. So how is he talking to Emmanuel at that time? Never mind. But stop. What does Emmanuel mean again? God with us, right? Let's say Isaiah's son. Isaiah went into the prophetess, and she conceived a son during the time of the Assyrians. And only after all these things the Assyrians were going to do was the name of Isaiah's son mentioned, O God with us, which means Emmanuel. Another Paul next now. Paul said that women shouldn't preach the word and just be quiet. One of the two. But as we read, Yah had female prophets. Paul just keeps lying. But everyone says that this is about the idol. What should I believe? The scriptures or what people keep trying to tell me? It said, moreover, Isaiah went into the prophetess, and she bore a son, and that son's name was eventually Emmanuel. But this is the end, people. I just wanted to show you that this was not talking about Jesus at all, and that this was a prophecy about the of the son of Isaiah. Until next time, cry out to the Most High and hallelujah.